Hey y'all, welcome to my kitchen, and I am so excited to do this video. This video right here is going to be so informative that I want you to go ahead and plan and take notes and get this information. And this is going to be a resource video that if you forget what to do, or if you need to go back and review, you can go back and review it time and time again. In this video, I'm talking about preserving food, and I'm going to go through 5 ways that I use to preserve food. I'm going to tell you the products that I use. I'm going to tell you the cost that it takes, or what the investment is to use that piece of product or equipment to preserve. I'm going to tell you where to get the supplies. I'm going to give you all the details on preserving food. The purpose of this video is to, one, encourage you to preserve your food and your harvest from your gardens. The second thing is to show you that there's many ways to preserve food. You may not do all 5. You may choose to do 1 because that's what your lifestyle needs, that's what your budget can allow, or whatever the case may be. So there are many options at many different cost levels, many different levels of investment, many types of equipment that you can use. And so that's why in this video, I'm going to go through each method, and I'm going to show you the cost, the supplies that you need, where you can get them. So it's going to be a one-stop resource for all things on how to preserve food. Now, if there's a video out there that goes through that, I haven't found it. I wish I would have had it when I first started my homesteading journey, but I am doing the video today, and I'm super excited because I think you will be surprised if there's many ways to preserve food. And if you're not preserving your food in some type of way, I hope after this video, you will choose 1, 2, or all of these methods to explore on how to preserve your food. So the first way that I'm going to show you how to preserve food is freeze drying. Yes, freeze drying. So freeze drying, out of all the methods I'm going to show, it is the most expensive. It is the hugest investment, right? So if you have a need for freeze drying, let's say you have a big family, let's say you've always wanted a freeze dryer, let's say you have one now and you're not using it, then let's talk about how to get the most out of your freeze dryer and what the cost is, right? So the freeze dryer we use is Harvest Right. It's a medium-sized freeze dryer. I just got my freeze dryer about 4 months ago, so I'm still a newbie. But I can tell you that I am loving it, right? I am loving it. The investment cost is about $3,000. So it is, there's some sticker shock there. But what I didn't know when I started thinking about a freeze dryer was that they have what I would call a layaway plan. And that is how I got my freeze dryer. You can put down a $250 deposit with Harvest Right, and you can make payments on the freeze dryer whenever you want, how much you want. It is literally no strings attached. You can make the payment for $100, and it can be once every 7 months. It doesn't matter. I put my freeze dryer on layaway in November of 2022, and I got my freeze dryer in February 2024. So it was a year just because I slow walked it, because I just used extra money. If I did a speaking thing, if I did something and I had the extra money, I would just put the extra money on the freeze dryer. So I kind of slow walked mine because I did not want to shell out $3,000 at one time, nor did I want to feel like I shelled out $3,000. But that's how I did it. You don't have to do it that way. But that is an option if you want to freeze dry and you're like, hey, I don't want to shell out that amount of money, or I don't have that amount of money to shell out. Here's a way to get it. Now, let's go ahead. I'm actually about to freeze dry some stuff, so that's why I'm starting with that. Let me grab the trays and show you what we're going to freeze dry, and I'm going to walk you through kind of the process, what you use, and how long it lasts, and all of that good stuff. Today, we're going to freeze dry some fruit, and then if I have space, I'm going to also do some peppers. So I'm doing strawberries. These are strawberries that I bought in season. Oh, it smells so good. And these, the stuff that I'm doing today is frozen. It does take away some of the drying time if your product is already frozen, but it does not have to be frozen in order for you to freeze dry. You can certainly put things in there that are raw and not frozen. I probably should have let these sit out just a little bit to kind of, not be clumped together. But I didn't, because this is some strawberries that I had already thawed out once, and then I had to refreeze. So we'll just let that sit there for a little bit. And then once they are able to break up, it'll fill up this whole tray. The next thing we're gonna do is mangoes. I did mangoes once before. It is a fan favorite. They were so good as snacks. And then I bought this mango in bulk. So I got 5 of these bags for $30, which to me is a very good deal. I only have 2 bags left. I lost 3 bags because I was freeze drying mango when a big storm came through, and so we lost power for almost 24 hours. So I lost my mango and my strawberry. So this is me redoing it. And there's no bad weather in the forecast, so we're gonna pray today that all will stay well and I will get my mango. This also smells so good. So with a freeze dryer, so far I've done fruits and I've done herbs, and I've been really pleased with the product. So freeze drying is the most expensive, and it's the one that's gonna last the longest. When you freeze dry foods, it has a 25-year shelf life. 25 years. So again, the more you invest, the more you're gonna get out of the product, right? And so have you seen what they call the MREs, the meals ready to eat, that the military would use? Those are freeze-dried meals, right? That's how they can last, because all of the moisture is being taken out. And if you store it properly, then it will last 25 years. All you have to do is reconstitute it. Now, this is not for long-term storage. This is for short-term storage and into my belly. This is just going to be snacks to have when you want to snack some freeze-dried fruit. Eating the mangoes, like y'all, they taste, I can't even express to you how good they taste. They taste so, so good. And so it's a great snack that's fruit, that's healthy, and it's much cheaper for me to do it than to buy freeze-dried mango. Have y'all seen the price of freeze-dried fruit and vegetables in the store? My friend sent me something. There was a little small thing of bananas, like this much. It was $8. Y'all, on my previous video, I did bananas. We used 6 bananas, and I want to say we got probably 10 cups of freeze-dried bananas. Easily. Like, easily. So, it looks like I have enough to fill up most of these trays. So I won't do peppers this time. I'll just do this fruit. Even though this is not completely full, it is pretty much full enough. And you want it to be like one layer and not go too high over the lid. So we're going to work this out and get this in the freeze dryer, and I'll come back and tell you a little bit more. Okay, we got those things in the freeze dryer. So those are going to percolate and do its thing. Now the thing with the freeze dryer, again, I'm giving you all the details. I've told you the cost. So it's a big investment, but I told you the shelf life is 25 years. Now, how long does the freeze drying take? It can take, on average, I would say 18 to 24 hours. That's right, it's a long time. But you really just put the stuff in there and it does what it's gonna do, and you just put it and forget about it until the next day. So even though it sounds like well, it is a long time, you don't have to do anything. Once you put it in there, it runs through the cycle and does what it needs to do. I can imagine in this, like right now, I'm using my freeze dryer at least once a week. And that's just because I haven't been home as much. But I'm using it, I would say, once a week. But when the produce starts coming in, I can imagine I'm going to use this freeze dryer pretty much probably every single day in the summertime, just because harvest and produce will be coming in. So that's the thing about the freeze dryer. It does take longer, so it's not an instant, I'm going to get it in a couple of hours. But there's so many things that you can do with it. The other thing I wanted to show you is that this is what's going in the freeze dryer next, on the next batch. Look at this beautiful deal. Smells so good. I wish we had smell-o-vision. This is dill from my garden. I got a whole basket full, and I got plenty more out there, but I'm going to freeze dry some dill and be able to use it in pickles, potato salad. I don't use a lot of dill at all, but there's always a couple of recipes throughout the year that you're like, oh, I wish I had some dill. Well, now I'm going to have plenty. I will have plenty, and it will last. So if I don't have a good dill harvest next year, I'm going to have plenty. So that's the other thing that I like. And when you do the herbs, they retain their color, they retain their flavor for the 25 years. So this is some cilantro that I freeze dried that you can see. It smells good as well. Some other things I freeze dried are some oranges and lemons to put in like hot tea. And then I freeze dried some bananas as well. So the options are endless. What I haven't done yet is like food, like leftovers and meals, soups and stews. I haven't gotten to that part yet, but it will do all of that. So freeze drying is definitely a great option to preserve food. And when you're preserving food, you think about there's short-term storage and then there's long-term storage, right? And we'll talk about why you should be thinking about preserving food. But that is the first method that I wanted to show you, is freeze drying. Now let's talk about another method of preserving food, and that is dehydration. Now, when it comes to dehydration, let's talk about the cost of a dehydrator. So first, I use the Excalibur 9-tray dehydrator. I have had mine for 3 years, and I use it every single summer, especially when I have produce coming in. So I use it on the summertime, in the summertime, it stays on my counter all summer long. So for about 4 months, it's on my counter and doesn't get put up until after that. I don't usually do a lot of dehydration outside of the summer. And the main thing that I use my dehydrator for, and this is before I had the freeze dryer, because now I got the freeze dryer. But before the freeze dryer, I was using my dehydrator for my peppers. Specifically, a lot of our jalapenos, we make jalapeno salt that we sell in the summertime. And so I use my dehydrator for that. I will continue to use it for that, but I'll be able to use my dehydrator and my freeze dryer for peppers and jalapenos and things like that. But a dehydrator, the cost is about, I would say, $300 to $350. And that's for the kind that I have, the Excalibur 9-tray. It is in my Amazon shop. And sometimes you'll find deals. I want to say I got mine probably 3 years ago, and it was like $269, somewhere along in there. I haven't looked at the prices lately, but $3,000 versus $300, you can see the drop in price. Now, how long does dehydration take? It can take 24 hours, depending on what you're dehydrating. And so people say, well, what's the difference between dehydration and freeze drying? I don't know how to explain it in the science and the technical terms, but I will tell you that dehydration shelf life is like 2 years or less. Freeze drying is 25 years or less. When it comes to dehydration, it is literally dehydrating, versus with freeze drying, it is taking all the moisture, it is freezing the product and then taking all the moisture completely out of it. So therefore it retains and keeps longer. With dehydration, you're basically just drying it. So you can dehydrate in the sun, you can dehydrate in your oven on a very low setting, or you can use a dehydrating machine like what I have. And so when I do my peppers and stuff, I would say on average, it's probably about 10 to 12 hours. When I have done tomatoes, they take a little bit longer because they have more juice and all of that. When I've done fruit, it's a little bit on the longer side. But on average, I would say probably between 12 and 16 hours is what you're looking at. So again, it's not immediate, but again, you set it and you forget about it. So you don't have to worry about it. I don't have any dehydrated products right now in my house that I haven't used because, again, mostly we use it for jalapenos and we make jalapeno salt, and we sold out of jalapeno salt like in November. But we'll be making it again. I will see if I can find a picture of some dehydrated food that I have done and pop it up here if I can. But that's the deal on dehydration. It is a great way to preserve food. But again, I would suggest that you eat it within, I always try to eat mine within a year or so, but I've heard some people say a couple of years, but I think a couple of years is going to be max. So you can dehydrate your peppers and then grind them up into powder and make your own seasonings and things like that. Now, I have used my dehydrator for herbs and I was not a fan of it. Other people say, oh, I love it, it works just fine. That was not my experience. When I dehydrated my herbs like basil and rosemary and things like that, the color was not the same. It was not the same dark, deep color. It was dull, and the flavor was certainly not as potent. So that was one of the reasons why I really wanted a freeze dryer, because I had heard that the potency and the color and all that retained in the freeze dryer. And I'm a witness. You saw my cilantro. It does a much better job. But again, if you cannot afford a freeze dryer, or that's not what you need right now, if you don't have a dehydrator, then look into getting a dehydrator. They probably have some cheaper ones as well. I think that Nesco makes one. Again, I'm just telling you what I use, but get what your money can afford if you don't have anything, and try to preserve your food. So when you think about your harvest coming in, if you have a lot of peppers, a lot of tomatoes and things like that, you don't want to go to waste, nor can sometimes you eat all of that during the season fresh. What are you going to do with it? You have to find a way to preserve, and you should be growing enough to eat fresh as well as to have later. Other things that I have dehydrated are tomato skins. So when I'm making my spaghetti sauces and things like that, and the tomato peel and the skin comes off, I put that in the dehydrator. You can grind it up into tomato powder, and then you can use that to season like rice, to make it like a Mexican rice. You can use it in chili. I may have some of that in my cabinet. Let me go see if I have that. Voila, I do. So here's an example of some dehydrated. This is tomato powder. You can see what it looks like. It smells slightly like tomatoes, right? Like the smell is not as potent as it probably would be freeze dried, but it's still good. But I did this 2 years ago. So I would say it has 2022. So I did it at the end of 2022. So almost coming up on 2 years. So I need to use this, or probably will use this, like making some Mexican rice, put in some chili, some soups and things like that. But of course I'll have more this year. And not that it's going to go bad. It's probably just not going to be as potent and as flavorful. But this is an example of dehydration. So I dehydrated the tomato skins, and then I ground them up into tomato powder. The other thing that I do with this is that you can mix this with water and make tomato paste, which if you're like me, I don't buy tomato paste because I very rarely use it, but there's always going to be a recipe that calls for some tomato paste and you don't have it. This is a great way to always have tomato paste. You can mix this with water, and voila, you have tomato paste. So again, dehydration is another great way to preserve your food. Okay, so the third way I want to talk about preserving your food is very simple: freezing. Freezing your food is a way to preserve it. And this method is relatively free or very, very inexpensive. So most of you probably have an extra freezer in your garage, in a shed or something like that. If you don't, then I know that you do have a freezer. But I know if you only have one refrigerator freezer in your house, it can be hard to freeze a lot of things because you're limited on space. So if it's within your budget and you have the space and you don't have one, I highly recommend getting a chest freezer or something like that. That will help you in your preserving journey. Now we have 3 freezers in our garage, and they are all pretty much full to the max, and they pretty much stay that way. We have 2 that are like just very traditional size, I would say on the smaller side. And then we have one that's pretty large. And the one that's pretty large is what we use for all of our stuff coming out of the garden. That's typically what that's used for. The 2 smaller ones are just for like everyday use. Now, again, I try to buy in bulk. I try to buy huge quantities when it's on sale. So I like having the extra freezer space. But this is a way, again, that's very affordable. All you need is some freezer bags. So I'm going to take you from least expensive to maybe more expensive. So this right here is regular old Ziploc freezer bags. I keep these in stock, especially during the summertime. So one of the things to note is that when you are buying freezer bags, make sure that it says freezer bags and not storage bags. The difference is that storage bags are going to be a little bit thinner and not as thick, because it's anticipating that you're going to be storing things maybe in a pantry, on a counter, something like that. So it's not necessarily freezer material. Now, will it work? Yes, but it's much thinner plastic than the ones that are labeled freezer bags. So my preferred, and so like this is example, storage, right? So I'm going to use these, but I bought the wrong thing. It should say freezer ideally, but I use these when I say sparingly, like it's not my top choice, but because I have a lot of them, I use them a lot. I'm going to show you what my preferred and my favorite method of freezing is in terms of a bag. But this right here, I think everybody can start off with. You probably already have this. It's just a regular old Ziploc bag. Ziploc is my brand that I prefer, but of course you can use Glad, Walmart brand, whatever you want. Again, I'm trying to make this as easy as possible to leave you no excuses to preserving your food. You probably already have this. So let me just show you. This right here is an exhibit or a visual of using a Ziploc freezer bag. This is deal. This is the deal that I just showed you earlier in the video. I'm gonna put this in the freezer so that it'll be ready for the freeze dryer the next time the freeze dryer comes open. So again, I just have it labeled. This is my deal. It's not gonna be in here long, so I'm not worried about it going bad. Excuse me. I'm not worried about it going bad. I'm not worried about it getting freezer burn because it's only gonna be in there probably less than 30 days and it's gonna go in the freeze dryer. One of the things to note that when it comes to shelf life of freezing, it's much shorter, 6 months to a year. So again, as we keep going through the different methods of freezing, freeze dryer, shelf life 25 years, but it's $3,000. A dehydrator, 1 or 2 years, is $300. Freezing, relatively pennies on a dollar. You can probably get this for like $6 or $7 at Walmart, and this is 75 bags, right? So a relatively inexpensive way, but you're not gonna use it. It's not gonna last as long. Things in the freezer tend to get freezer burn, or the taste and the freshness is just not the same. So I try to make sure that I'm rotating my stuff in the freezer. I try to make sure I'm using my stuff in the freezer at a minimum within 12 months. So this is Exhibit A. Here's the bag that I love. It's called a Stasher bag. That's the brand name. This is in my Amazon shop, or you can go to stasher.com. You can get them off Amazon. They have deals, especially when they have like Prime days. These will be on sale. Now, let me warn you, it is pricey, but y'all know how I am. I love quality, and I will pay for quality. If that's not your thing, get you some Ziploc. But if you want to zhuzh it up and go up a notch, these bags right here are my favorite. I tried them for the first time last year and bought like a set. I plan on buying more for this year, but this is a reusable silicone bag. Now you can find them cheaper. I have another one that I'll show you that I bought maybe 2 years ago, and it works just as well. But the seal on this, I don't know if you can see this. The seal is like, this is what made me fall in love with. The seal is so tight, nothing is getting in. And the material, the silicone, the thickness and the durability of it is A1. Like the quality of this bag is A1. So you're going to pay for it, but you're going to have it forever. They come in all beautiful colors and all different sizes. This is my favorite size, which is the half-gallon stand-up. I think this is called Mega. Now, my only negative thing I would say about Stasher is that I wish the bags came even bigger. And maybe it will one day, but as of now, I think this is the biggest size bag you can get. But I used these bags for my tomatoes last summer, my peppers, all of that in these bags. And I noticed they lasted, meaning they didn't get as much freezer burn and freezer crystals on them when I use these bags versus these Ziploc bags. But they come in all different sizes and shapes. They got them real small. Matter of fact, I think I got another one. Let me see. Yep. Here's one. Like, they come in all kinds of shapes and sizes for your kids' lunch. This is like a little travel pouch when I'm taking, when I'm traveling. It has like medicine, it has like cough drops and like emergency, like those little things you put in your water. I cannot say enough good things. If you want to step it up a notch, this right here is a game changer. Y'all know I don't say that often. I love these bags. Stasher, they're in my Amazon shop. So this is another way to freeze your food. Here is, again, another example. I forgot to show you this when I was showing you the deal. This, again, is the Ziploc bag, old tried and true method. This is shredded cabbage from my garden. Remember, we harvested tons and tons of cabbage. So this is shredded cabbage. I'm going to use this either to cook, as in sauteed cabbage, and see how it holds up, because I've never frozen cabbage before, so this is a test. And I will also try this when I'm making the mix for egg rolls. I figure it doesn't have to be crunchy for that. So this should be a good application for that. But this is probably about 2 to 3 heads of cabbage. I got all in this 1 gallon bag. And I still have plenty of cabbage in the refrigerator. Now, let me show you another tool that you can use to freeze, which are these containers. This is also in my Amazon shop. These containers are wonderful. They're sturdy. They don't give. Very good quality. Now, stop trying to use the stuff that you get from the restaurants, right? When you get takeout and then try to use them in your freezer over and over again. Don't do that, because it's not going to last. Before you know, you're going to pull your stuff out the freezer and your stuff being fell apart. Or it's going to fall in your hand because it's going to give, right? These are really, really sturdy and rigid. This is a 16 ounce. They come in 32 ounces, I think, and in 8 ounces. I keep these on hand. But let me show you how I use these. I put salsa in these. I put spaghetti sauce in these. When I made blueberry syrup, I use this. Pesto, I use this and put them in my freezer. You can stack them. You can label them. What we're about to do right now is we are going to put some freezer coleslaw in these containers. So look, I made this coleslaw. Isn't that beautiful? This is my first time I'm trying it. I am going to freeze this, and I'm going to use these containers to do so. So I've already made the mix. They're ready for the freezers. And I'm going to show you. I've never done this before, so if you've done freezer coleslaw, let me know. And these lids are like, your stuff ain't coming out. You put the lid on there, it ain't coming out. I made up 2, but I think I'm gonna have enough for probably 3. This is just one recipe of the freezer coleslaw. I love coleslaw, and I'm like, I'm hesitant on whether or not this is gonna work, but we're gonna see. We are going to see if it works. So, and then these are stackable. So this will go in my freezer. I got enough for, it looks like, probably 1 more. So I will do that, and then I will have 3 of these. So just for my garden alone, cabbage, dill going to the freezer, and freezer coleslaw. This is carrots that we grew and cabbage that we grew. So again, preserving the harvest coming from the garden to the kitchen to the freezer. This is a great application for this, right? And so these, again, containers are in my Amazon shop. The other resource I want to tell you about is this book. And this is where I got the coleslaw recipe. So this is the recipe that I use, but it's from this book called Freeze Fresh. I love this book. This is also in my Amazon shop. So again, when you're looking for links, I try to put everything there that I use and that I buy. So that way, if you come back and watch the video and I don't mention or put the link specifically, just go to my Amazon shop. Everything is there. It's organized, categorized, all the things. But this book is great. If you don't have it, get it. This is from Crystal Smith. She is on Instagram under Whole Fed Homestead. I'm not affiliated with her. I just love her book. It tells you how to freeze just about everything from A to Z. It's in alphabetical order. There's pictures. She tells you the process of how to freeze it, what type of container that's best for it, and then she gives you recipes to use the frozen stuff. Like, she is like the expert when it comes to freezing. Freeze Fresh. So again, that is another way to preserve food. We've talked about freeze drying, we've talked about dehydration, and now freezing. This is a method that just about everybody can use because A, it is cheap, it's not a lot of investment in that, and you more than likely have a freezer or you can tuck away some things. Now, you may not have a lot of space. Do what you can do. And again, when you're doing things like this, try to get your product as flat as possible, right? Get all the air out. And then you can just stack stuff on top, right? Like this. And just flatten, have it flat, and that way you can stack more instead of trying to make it all big and bulky, if that makes sense. So I hope This method is something that you're already doing. If not, I want you to try and start today. Look into these bags, look into these containers, and I think you'll be pleased with the quality of these products. Now let's talk about our next method of preserving. Okay guys, the fourth way that you can preserve your food is through the use of Mylar bags and 5-gallon buckets. So this may be something that is new to you. I did a whole video on this. It's probably been over a year and a half ago. I'll try to remember and link it up here. But I did a whole video on preserving storage long-term in 5-gallon buckets and Mylar bags. I want to specifically talk about Mylar bags. And so Mylar bags, you can get them, I'll leave some links down below because I don't remember off the top of my head, but you can also get them off Amazon. Just make sure that you get one that is thick enough. I think 5 mil is the one that I use, and this is what they look like. So it's just bags. You can see here is where I have some cane sugar. I've dated it, and then you just seal it with the impact sealer, which I'll show you. Also, with the freeze dryer, they send you Mylar bags. You've probably seen these on other people's videos. This is the same thing as a Mylar bag. It's just pretty on the front, but it's the same thing on the back. So the mangoes and strawberries that we did earlier in the video, this is the mangoes right here that I am putting. I put some in a mason jar just for quick snacking on the counter, but then these I put for, I'm not gonna say long-term storage, but I put in these to try it out. So Mylar bags come in various different sizes. This right here is a gallon size bag. You can get them up to 2 gallons, a half a gallon, a quart, all of that. Here's how you use it. I use mine for all of like my bulk grains that I buy. So oats, grits, rice, my nuts, pecans, walnuts, sugar, salt, nutritional yeast flakes, flour, what else? Like all of those types of things, I buy those in bulk by 50-pound bags. And then I split them up and put them into Mylar bags. And then inside the Mylar bag, you put an oxygen absorber. So an oxygen absorber, if you're brand new to this, again, you can get these off Amazon as well. I will try to put these in my shop, but this is what they look like. There's like 10 in here. So these are little bitty squares, and you put one of these in each bag, and it does exactly what it says. It absorbs the oxygen so that the food will remain intact and safe. Packaging something in a Mylar bag with an oxygen absorber has a shelf life of 20 years, right? So I do an extra step. I take my Mylar bags, and so let's say, for example, I bought a 50-pound bag of oatmeal. I would split that up into various bags this size, because I can take one of these and put into my canister in my pantry, because we go through oatmeal quite a bit. But I would put all of those, all of that oatmeal into individual Mylar bags. And then I would put all of those Mylar bags in a 5-gallon bucket with a lid and a top. Now, why do I do that? I do that because I want to make sure that there's no rodent or anything that can bite through this bag or that can get to it. So that's an extra layer of protection, especially if you're going to do it for long-term storage. Now, you can just do this. One, is cheaper to buy in bulk. You can just do this for what I call short-term storage. So for example, in a 50-pound bag of oatmeal, we may go through that in 6 months. So that's not necessarily long-term storage, right? I have some for short-term and then for long-term. For short-term, I can just put it in here and then, or put it, some people will pour this directly into a 5-gallon bucket. I don't ever do that just because I don't like that. But can you do it? Yes, you can. But you can put this in a Mylar bag without an oxygen absorber if you know that you're going to use it within the next 3 or 4 months, and then still put it inside of a 5-gallon bucket. That's just going to make sure that it is completely sealed. No rodents, no mice, no anything can bite through the bag, because it can't get through the bucket. So that's what you would do for long-term storage. We have a root cellar, and so that's where we store all of our long-term storage bulk grains that we buy in bulk, okay? And so I want you to see that this right here, if I were to turn it upside down, like it's not coming out. So you use this kind of machine called an impact sealer. I will, this is from Harvest Right. It came with the freeze dryer, but I already had one that I got from Amazon I will link that in the shop as well. So you can use this to seal the bag. So basically, if you had an open bag, you would put the product in there, pop an oxygen absorber in there, and then you would take this, press it down, and it seals it in like 3 seconds because the heat is very hot. You can also, we also use the impact sealer when we ship out our dehydrated sourdough starter. We use it to seal the package. Like, let's say you make cookies or candies that you give away at Christmas time or teachers appreciation. You can, put them in little cute bags, and then you can seal it with the impact sealer. So this impact sealer comes in handy for lots of stuff. At this stage of the game, I just keep it on my counter because I'm always sealing and preserving something. So again, from a cost perspective, this is probably in between a freezer bag and, let's say, if I had to guess, it's been a long time because I bought a lot of Mylar bags in bulk and oxygen absorbers. So I have like plenty because in 1 year I bought a whole ton. But I would say you can get a pack of 50 bags. It's been a long time, but I'm going to guess and say $10 to $15 maybe for 50 bags. A pack of oxygen absorbers, maybe $10 to $15. And so you're looking at 30 bucks, right, to preserve a whole lot of stuff. So more expensive than a freezer bag, but cheaper than a freeze dryer, cheaper than a canner, cheaper than a dehydrator. So again, this is another option and another way to preserve food. Also, I do my beans that way. So I buy dry beans in bulk. I put them in Mylar bags, pop an oxygen absorber in it, and put it in a 5-gallon bucket. So again, that is a way to preserve food. So if you're low on freezer space, if you're low on money, but you want to store up, you want to preserve, then that is a way to do it, is to use Mylar bags, oxygen absorbers, and seal it. And that way it'll have a preservation shelf life of 15 to 20 years. Also, if you're doing beans out of your garden, let's say you dehydrate them, you could do that as well, right? Now, dehydrated in a Mylar bag, I don't know if that extends the shelf life or not. I'm not 100% sure. But again, that is another option of preserving your food. Now let's talk about the final and fifth way of how I preserve my food, which is canning. Y'all have seen me, I think I have a canning playlist. I have canned a ton, and I'm so glad that I learned the skill about 3 years ago. It is a great skill to have. Many people are afraid to can, but if you do it the way they say do it, there's no reason to fear. There's no reason to fear botulism. There's no reason to fear it spoiling or you not doing it right or having a catastrophe if you just follow the directions. Canning is not one of those things that you just free will and free form. You need to follow the guidelines. So there are 2 ways to can. You can water bath can and you can pressure can. So let's talk about water bath canning and what the investment would that be. So for water bath canning, all you need is a big old stock pot. I would say 21 quart or higher. So anywhere from 21 quarts to 30 quarts is a great stock pot to use for water bath canning, right? I have canning supplies in my Amazon shop as well, but that is a great way to preserve food. The shelf life on that, I say 2 years or less. I try to eat my canned products within a year. To me, after 18 months, it starts to lose its color and its flavor. Is it still safe to eat? Yes, it's still safe to eat. But for me, the flavor and sometimes the color is not as bright and the flavor is not as strong. So again, canning is not a long-term option. Like, it's not going to last 20 years or so, but a good 12 to 18 months is a good sweet spot. So as things are coming out of your garden, like your tomatoes, your green beans, your corn, your squash. Well, can you can squash? I've never canned squash. I'm assuming you can. Green beans you can. Tomatoes, you can do a lot of tomato products. Like we do spaghetti sauce. You can do pizza sauce, barbecue sauce, pizza sauce. Like all of those types of things you can and use within the year. So last year we did a whole bunch of spaghetti sauce from our tomatoes in our garden. I also did a video on that, and I think we're down to, we may have 6 quarts left, which that is still, I think, good because this is May. I don't have tomatoes won't start coming in until probably like June, but I usually don't can my tomatoes until the fall because in the summertime, it's just way too busy. So I usually don't can my tomatoes to probably somewhere between October, November, somewhere in there. So 6 quarts of spaghetti sauce can last us. That'll be kind of right on it. We usually eat spaghetti or lasagna or something with that sauce once a month. So it's not like an every week thing. So that is perfect. So again, I'm using it within the year and I'm growing enough tomatoes to preserve for a year. So canning is a great way to do that. Now, in this video, I won't talk about the specifics of canning, like what do you water bath can and what do you pressure can. That would be a video all by itself. But the point is that canning is a way to preserve food. So for water bath canning, you need a stock pot between 21 and 30 quarts. And so you can probably get one of those on Amazon. I would say that's going to run you anywhere from $60 to $100 for the pot. Obviously, you're going to have the pot forever and ever and ever. And then there's some small supplies that you need to hold the jars and things like that. I would say rough estimate, you can probably get that stuff for $20. So let's just say you could water bath can, I would say on the high end for $120. On the lower end, probably $80, right? So again, it is an economical option. It's more than freezer bags, but less than a dehydrator and much less than a freeze dryer, right? So that is an option. The other option is to pressure can. And there's certain things that have to be water bath can and certain things that have to be pressure can. But if you do a pressure canner, then that's where it gets a little bit more expensive, right? I use an All-American pressure canner. That's going to run you anywhere between, I would say, $275 and $400. I've had mine. I have 2. I've had them for 3 years. It was somewhere like $250, $300, somewhere along in there. And the prices may have gone up by then, but I think you could get one between $250 and $350, somewhere along in there for an All-American. Now they also have a Presto, which is another brand that's much cheaper. And I want to say you can probably get that for $150. Now I have a digital pressure canner as well. That's about $350. Again, depending on what level you want to invest, what your goals are, I'm giving you a range of options for you to explore. The digital pressure canner, again, you can only do like 5 to 7 jars, depending on if they're quart size or pint size. But I like it because it kind of takes the guesswork out of it for you and you don't have to remember every little step. Like it's kind of going to walk you through step by step, do this, do this, do that. But you can't bulk can. So I would not suggest having that and not having a pressure canner unless maybe you live by yourself. You're not going to be canning a ton or something like that. But if you have a family and you want to preserve food in bulk, then I would invest in a pressure canner. And then the digital pressure canner is just like an added bonus for convenience. And that's kind of what I did. Again, once I know that I'm going to do something and I know that I'm going to keep doing it, then I'll invest in other pieces. But I usually just start off with the basics. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So I've gone through 5 ways that you can preserve food: freezing, freeze drying, canning, dehydration, and Mylar bags. Those are just the 5 main ones that I use. There are other methods of preserving, like a lot of people do vacuum sealing and put it in the freezer. Again, it's still freezing, but they vacuum seal, and that is a way of preserving. Also, fermentation is a way to preserve. I don't do any fermenting because I don't pretty much like, the only thing fermented I'm doing is sourdough, but I don't like sauerkraut or any of that. I don't like it, so I don't do it. And so I don't know how to do it. So I'm not a good resource for that. But that is a way to preserve food. And from what I've seen, I've watched videos on it. I think the cost will be relatively inexpensive, less than $100. So here is the point. Put down in the comments for me, which of these ways are you preserving food now? Or which way are you going to try? I want to just encourage you, inspire you, and motivate you that if you're not preserving food of any way, sort, shape, or form, to at least try one of these methods. Be intentional this summer with your harvest and making sure that you have a plan for the abundance, right? So remember, about a month or so ago, I did a garden prayer and we prayed for abundance. Now, don't pray for abundance and you don't have a plan for your abundance. Have a plan for your abundance. Now, you may say, well, I'm going to give it away. That's a great option too. But I want you to think about how are you preserving your summer harvest. And I hope that one of these ways hits you where you are from a capacity standpoint, a budget standpoint, an ability standpoint. 5 different ways at 5 different cost levels. You don't have to do all 5 like me. Pick one if you're not doing anything. And then if you're doing one, then add another one and learn a skill that you don't have or try something out. I hope that this video was helpful for you. I wish I would have had something like this when I first started my preservation journey. So again, I'm always creating content that I wish I had. But I hope that it's not just for me. I hope that it was helpful. So let me know in the comments if this video was helpful. Please share it. Take notes. You can come back to it as a resource time and time again. And if you have questions, please leave them down below if there was something that wasn't clear or if I did not give enough information about it. Remember, gardening is a journey. We got to do something with the harvest though. So remember, let's grow together. I'll see you next time, friend.